in Washington during that panel discussion recently on the Bretton Woods institution's priorities in the next decade. I think that was the subject of your panel discussion. One comment of India's finance minister got quoted a lot, where you said, and I quote, that no country, and we feel proud when we hear you talk like this, where Ms. Sitharaman, you said in Washington that no country, whether the US or China, can ignore India's growing influence. Now again, with Donald Trump returning to office, his stance on trade and tariffs will be a big factor in Indo-US relations, Ms. Sitharaman. Right from 2018, Trump has been describing India as a very, very tough negotiator. He calls us a big abuser of tariffs. He has tremendous praise for the Prime Minister. He speaks so warmly of him, but at the same time, in the next sentence, he says India is a big abuser on tariffs. Now, in September 2024, he reiterated that India imposes heavy tariffs. Given these statements, how do you see our country navigating potential challenges on Trump's tariff policies? Will we climb down? Or can we hold our own? Because we have to protect our economic interests, but we also have to protect our geostrategic relationship with the United States. If you can elaborate on that.
Well, I think one thing is very clear. If, under the leadership of the Prime Minister, we were able to navigate during COVID and immediately after COVID, when the challenges were like never seen before. They were not challenges which you had experienced earlier. You found a solution earlier, so you could copy-paste that solution now. No, they were unique challenges. Even so, you had a Prime Minister who could logically explain why India had to take a position and justify it. And there was a lot of effort to explain where India is coming from. The simple example of the Russian oil.
Yes.
The simple example of COVID time measures. The simple example of vaccinations which came from abroad, which required 1,000 conditions to be met.
Yes.
And imagine the conflict, the dharma sankata of a Prime Minister. He wants to give vaccination to our people at the earliest. The process of getting our own vaccines ready is taking a bit more time. In the meanwhile, the temptation is that we can get the vaccines from outside, but it came with so many conditions. Were you ready to compromise on those conditions and get them? It's a different story that those vaccinations and their human fitness, yes, as they say, are being questioned now. I'm not talking with the benefit of that doubt which is there. I'm not talking from that, advantage of a future looking back at the past. But at that time, the dharma sankata that he faced, but made sure that we brought in something which was adept for Indian use, with India's own. These are not decisions which would have gone down well with many people outside. But he had the, if anything, that the strength of the inner self of the person, that quality of that leader, who could go sit, look into eye of the opponent and say, no, please, we are doing this because of this reason. And it stood by us like a rock. The decisions have served us. And that is what is going to be carried forward as well. So even with the US case that you're putting before me, and about the tariffs, and that we've been accused of being abuser of the tariffs that we use, it is possible to explain every tariff that we have levied. It's not to control imports. But yet, do I have a responsibility towards the companies, for instance, in India, the capacities that is existing in India to produce some goods, and we go about importing those goods or those goods in broken down fashion and then reassemble them? Do we have a moral authority to kill or nip in the bud those who are growing in India and who can produce in India? I need to give that protection for them as well. As much as I have to encourage industries which need those imports. Imports are required. Intermediary goods are required to be imported. I will have to encourage that. I will lift the tariffs on them, provided it doesn't intended or unintended, hurt my own capacity to produce. I have to balance the two.
Very important.